This is Pete Moore on Halo Talks NYC. I have the pleasure of having Nick Staples, straight from West Virginia, back to New York City. Nick, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Awesome. So what I want to talk about today is how you turn your passion into a profession, how you convinced your father to become an employee of your growing business.
Absolutely.
And your growth into the heartland of America. We'll cover topics including, deciding to become an entrepreneur, building a business out of your home state, seeing what happens on the coast, and saying, we can replicate this, and there's demand in secondary markets, to really blow this out. So why don't you start giving your background here, and then we'll have a free flowing convo.
Absolutely, yeah,
Fire
amazing.
away.
Thanks so much. Yeah, so I graduated from high school in 2013, Charleston, West Virginia, and immediately moved to New York City to attend Pace University for musical theater, performing arts, with a side of business, education. Kind of delved into a little bit of everything. And while I was there, I, found a cycling studio, Soul Cycle, and, the mecca of indoor cycling, and absolutely fell in love with it, fell in love with the concept. But what really stuck out to me was how a performer, which is what I was and still am at the time, could in turn become a cycling instructor. And so it's so crazy, for me, how I can intertwine all of that together. But, I, while attending Pace University, worked for Soul Cycle for a very brief amount of time, still studied, still went to school. And, being from Charleston, West Virginia, there's nothing like it in the market, nothing at all.
So did you view when you started working at Soul Cycle, to me, it's like a Broadway show,
right?
Every 45 minutes. And, the instructors have, 55, 65 people that are, now you're basically a live performer at 6 a.m. where you can't go to a show until a matinee or an evening show. So, how did you feel? Because what I do see is that you were really in the live entertainment business.
Exactly.
And, how do you feel that is being transferred into going into West Virginia, going into Pittsburgh? What kind of talent is there that obviously, you've got your New York Broadway show performers, and you've got your LA, you've got, actors, and
definitely,
how many, what's the talent like there? Because I don't think people fully appreciate, what it takes to run a class.
You're exactly right. And, and it's so interesting that you say that, because it is a performance, it is a production. Every single class is a production. You have your opening, your closing, a climactic point. And so finding instructors in these secondary markets, it's interesting, but the way we find them is finding people that can connect. It's not just about people that can perform, it's people that can connect. And all of these secondary markets have performing arts centers. They have other fitness concepts with people that are just dying to get into the sector to do that particular thing. Whereas in New York City and LA, you can hop right on in a heartbeat because there's thousands of studios all around you. So in the secondary markets, it almost becomes easier at points because you have so many untapped people that have never even been approached about this, but to the flip side, some of them have never even heard about it. So now you have to intrigue them and show them what it's all about. And it's been a really interesting transition as we've brought it to a place like Charleston, West Virginia.
So when you, obviously New York City is the birthplace of a lot of these fitness concepts, and you've got top, A-level performers. So when you went back to West Virginia, were people ready for this?
It's crazy. Yes, I'm going to start by saying yes. People had no idea what we were doing, no idea at first, but they did know one thing, and that's that they believed in it and they were having fun. And I think that that's the most important thing, is that the untapped market, we were able to take something with such a little amount of funding and et cetera, and we can get more into that, but sure, such a little bit of funding, and completely blow it out of the water to where these people, now they feel like they are in New York City. And I think that's the coolest thing with these secondary markets, is that, a lot of these bigger companies, Flywheel, Soul Cycle, big, massive companies, they're not going to tap into those markets. And so it's really important that someone gets to those areas.
Yeah, and we've got one of our friends from Sabre here who does all these demographic studies, and I'm sure Soul Cycle and Flywheel and some of these other groups look at markets like West Virginia and continue to fly over them and won't be planting a flag there, which
Right.
obviously benefits you. But when you actually went into town, the one thing that I'll start with this: every time I go on a plane and someone's like, "What do you do?" and I tell them I work in the health and fitness industry and Halo sector, and then I ask them, "Have you heard of Soul Cycle? Have you heard of Flywheel?" And still, like 95% of people have no idea what I'm talking
Exactly.
about. So I still feel like we're in the second inning. Yet it feels like there's so much competition, and it's almost like, all right, has this trend already proliferated to the point where there's not opportunity? And then I just see like 95% of the people don't even know what I'm talking about.
Right.
Yet.
Right.
So when you went to West Virginia, did you even need to use, this is what's going on in New York and we're bringing this to West Virginia? You're like, look, I'm here. This is where I'm from. Like, this is going to be a kick-ass, awesome workout. And you don't even have to use any analogies.
That's exactly how we started. We, at the core of what Zenergy is, it's about the community that we've built. And so all it took was one person to experience it. And then that one person brought another person. And then that person brought 5 more people. And to this day, that's what we really use as our community and as our stepping stone. It's, I want and we want people to feel like they are a part of something. And I feel like when you feel like you're a part of something, you invest so much more in yourself and the people around you.
Yeah. So when you went to your father and some of your friends and said, "Hey, I'm doing this in West Virginia," and you told them, people pay $35-$40 to go to a 45-minute class. How crazy did they think you were?
People thought I was insane. I remember we were at the beach and we were talking about this concept, and the family joked around and said, I would pay $5 to go take a class, and
right.
And we laughed, and I said, people are paying $34 in New York City, and they didn't believe it. They didn't believe it at all. And here we are, not charging $34 in Charleston, West Virginia, but charging a prime rate.
Mm-hmm. And then when you started, obviously you looked at the Soul Cycle business model, how profitable that was, how many people, they're doing $2,000-$3,000 per class per hour.
Yep.
So how did you think about that in the secondary markets of, what is the right price point? I mean, you can you get a grilled salmon, it probably costs $22 and you're done with that in 7 minutes. So,
right.
What price point did you get to, and how do you think about your business model?
Yeah. So when we originally opened in Charleston, we started at $15 a class. That was based on some yoga classes that were around, and just really wanting to come in at just a random price just to get a feel for what it was. 3 years later, we're now charging $17 a class in that location and $20 at our other locations. The interesting thing is that for us, we're able to do it without having 10 people working our front desk. Mm-hmm. You have an instructor and you have 1 or 2 people working your front desk. So that's kind of how we got that class rate. But in addition, you can also buy a monthly pass from us. Which is $200 a month, $225 a month, $250 a month. So you're, creating a product that's prime and something that people really want to invest in.
So when you went back to West Virginia, where was the first location, and what were the, what was the demos, or what kind of retail were you trying to get next to? Talk us through how you made those types of decisions.
Yeah. So when I moved back home in July of 2015, I dropped out of school, out of PACE, quit all of my jobs.
Good decision.
I quit all my jobs. I worked on Broadway at the Lion King.
I didn't, by the way. I still aspire to be on Broadway.
It's amazing.
I tell people I'm off Broadway, like 2 blocks away. So
there you go. Hey, I guess that works.
Yeah.
So I moved back home to Charleston, West Virginia after quitting all of these things due to some unfortunate life circumstances, and there was nothing there, nothing. And it was so crazy because I truly didn't know what I was doing at the time, but who really does know what they're doing at the time? And I found this retail space, and it's an upstairs, same space we're in today, 3 years later. Mm-hmm. Upstairs, it's a little less than 2,000 square feet. It needed some paint and a few walls put up, and that was it. Mm-hmm. That was it. And we opened 3 or 4 weeks later, we had our whole company.
Wow.
Right in front of us.
That's not like the permitting process in New York to open anything.
Right. And lucky for me, I think that's such the interesting piece of the story is that so many people think that you have to start in such a big market. Mm-hmm. And that may be true for some brands, but for us and for me and for Zenergy, starting in Charleston, West Virginia was the best thing that we could have ever done, because we were able to start so small and scale our business with each location that we've had since, and go back and add things to that location, you know? So from the start, we were set up for success from day one.
So when it's your own business, how many classes were going on a day, and how many were you teaching yourself?
When we first opened, we had 24 a week, and I was teaching all of them.
Wow. Okay.
It was a lot. Yeah. It was a lot.
We have some entrepreneurs that we work with, and they think they have this large company where they teach like one class a day, or, you know, I say, look, man, you got to get on that bike, and this is your business and it's your bike, and you better ride it.
You're right.
Not hire somebody to ride it.
You're right. And, you know, and it's interesting that you say that, because when riders see you riding, they feel the connection. And, you know, I am a very hands-on person, so you'll always see me in all of our studios. I still today teach 10 to 12 classes a week. That's very crucial, very important for me. Because that's where the philosophy started. So, you know, it's really important to be in that setting.
So how much of this was people enjoying the experience and that kind of ramping, you know, through word of mouth and through kind of building that community? And how much of it was you being an evangelist, and it's like, I'm taking Nick's class, and like it was Nick first, and then it's Zenergy, and now it's Zenergy.
You're right. Yeah, there was a transition. There was 100% a transition. You know, you went from one instructor who was teaching, managing the studio, cleaning the floors, selling the retail, doing everything, and now you're bringing in 5 additional people that, you know, people definitely know, but maybe they're not Nick Staples, the person they've been taking for 2 months. The way the transition worked was we made sure that each instructor that came in was teaching the same philosophy. So, you know, there's a difference, and we tell people this all the time, all of our instructors, is we'll provide the backbone and you provide the body. And that's something that today, you know, all of our instructors will provide you the backbone. You have to have the backbone, but the body you're going to fill in. You're going to choose your own music. You're going to choose all of that on your own. So having that down, and from my experience at Soul Cycle and my experience working at other places and on Broadway and being a performer, the training was the most crucial part to that. And still today, we're still developing the training.
So are you running the trainings yourself?
I am now, yes.
Okay. And
yes.
how many locations are you up to now?
We have 3 locations: Charleston, West Virginia, Morgantown, West Virginia, and Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Got it. And how are those going from a standpoint of you being able to allow this to build on its own and other personalities to kind of spring up? And maybe for our entrepreneurs here that are listening, or for people that are in your position, you know, at some point you got to say, all right, if this business is going to scale, you know, I can't be responsible for, you know, every piece of a class, like you're talking about the backbone. So dig deep for a second and like tell us how you internally kind of calibrated, like, hey, I'm not running, this isn't my own spin studio anymore, and this isn't my class. Like, I'm building a business. There's a pivot point.
I think the important thing that I learned maybe within the past 6 to 8 months is that you need to listen and listen to your employees around you, because your employees, our riders, our clientele, we don't call them clients, we call them riders. They are the brand, and, you know, we are there for them, but the employees are the breathing mechanism. They're the heart of the company. So, you know, taking feedback from each other and letting people, for us, it's work to let them run their own business. We provide the tools, and then you run the business. And when they feel like it's their business, when they feel like they have a part of it, we found that it blows it out of the water every time, through management, instructors, our front desk. I mean, anybody that's involved in the company, you want them to have a sense of pride. And I think that's the most important part.
So how far is since I don't have my GPS with me, how far is it from Charleston to Pittsburgh?
3 hours.
3 hours. So how often are you in Pittsburgh?
I'm in Pittsburgh about once every 2 weeks. Charleston about once every 2 to 3 weeks. Morgantown is our home studio, our flagship studio. I'm there every day.
Gotcha. And then what's the future plans here? Where do you see the opportunity, and what's the growth that you want to have, but not potentially stress yourself out to the point where, it loses what you've built.
Yeah. So we want to stay in these secondary markets. As we grow and build the studios, we would like to see a little bit more clustering in the Pittsburgh, Ohio, Kentucky regions. Ideally, I'd like to open 10 additional studios in the next 24 months. And once those are really planted and in the ground, I'd like to really reevaluate and get a new game plan from there, or even a game plan up to that point.
Got it. So let's pivot to you got this is a family business. So tell the story about how your dad. I just celebrated my dad's 50th wedding anniversary with
Amazing.
my mom, and I've done some work with him as in his business at the time. So talk about how you got your dad involved in the business and how he gets disciplined or coached up as needed.
Well, I joke all the time. I joke all the time because I'm his son. He didn't really have a choice. But no. When we opened, he's been so supportive. And when I came back to Charleston and moved back, I really didn't know what I was going to do. I was really lost. And I think being able to grow in the aspect of something completely different than what I was going to school for, but at the same time not.
Yeah, sure.
It's really cool. And so for him, he had such an interest in what I was doing and coincidentally enough became an instructor. Went through the training program, does a phenomenal job, teaches at our Charleston studio. And it is a family business, but every single person that comes to Zenergy is a part of that extended family. So while, he's blood family, I think it's no matter how big we are, 40 studios, 50 studios, 1,000 studios, it's so crucial that just like the connection that I have with my dad is that we have that same connection with every single writer. And so, that's really it's been cool to see it grow.
That's great. So how have you built out the team now that you're at 3 locations and, who's in different boxes, and when did you feel like, hey, I got to bring on a new marketing person. I got to bring on a COO or how's that evolved?
So we start with a studio manager for each studio. They are the running people of the studio. Depending on the size of the studio, then we'll add an assistant studio manager. We make sure they are fully trained on everything. We actually just created, I think we mentioned previously last time, a training program to make sure everyone's speaking the same language, the same lingo, doing the same movements. I mean, everything that's involved in the 4 walls. And now we're starting to build out from there. We get our instructors, but now we're starting to build out our HQ team. So right now we just hired a director of ridership and retail.
Okay.
That person is in charge of our community building. Are we reaching the hospitals that are around, the colleges that are around? And 2, our retention, the riders, how much are they coming back? What reports can we run and what incentives can we do to get them back? And then in addition, our retail, which is a growing part of our business, right now between 10 and 15% of our business, and then an assistant for me. So it's continuing to just, as we build more studios, to bring a COO, a in-house financial person, to keep that consistency moving forward.
So for people who haven't taken a class, and I haven't had the opportunity yet, but tell us, what does the brand represent to you, and how'd you come up with the name?
The brand, to me, represents a few words: passion, community, and love. And then in addition, there's 4 words that we live by: patience, dedication, hard work, and love. PDHL. Every class ends like that. And for us, to me, Zenergy represents what I needed when I was going through a dark time. And that's exactly how it was created. And so we, as a team, were able to take that and bring that into a class setting. For instance, when you walk in, I want you to feel welcomed. And we do that by not having mirrors in our studios. We have no mirrors in any of our studios. Our instructor, it's not a boot camp style class. You're going to get a workout. You're going to burn a lot of calories and you're going to be sore. But it's not a boot camp style class. I want you to enjoy it too. And so that's what Zenergy really is it's encompassing around the word of community together in all aspects. We are all there for the same common mission, the same common bond. It's not a race. No one's against each other. And when the door shuts, no matter the craziness that's happening outside of our 4 walls, we can still enjoy ourselves for at least 45 minutes.
Gotcha. That's great. So talk about your relationship with Sabre and
Absolutely.
how you think about the data that you're given, and also, I can tell that you do a lot of things based on your gut, which I think you should never give up, because the data is the data, and your gut's your gut, and you got to make decisions that you live by. So how do you think about the balancing act of that, given that this is your first, enterprise?
Yeah, that's a tough one. Every location that we've done up to this point, we just found and we did. As we scale and grow, with Sabre, what we've done is given them the information, and they found the information based on the locations that we have. And now we're trying to put that into play. So we have 3 different locations with 3 of the same demographic, but also 3 different demographics. And so now it's how can we strategically get all of those demographics into each location. So, what we're doing is, and the Sabre team is doing, is creating these maps of these different trade areas and the different locations that we can go into where they are truly untapped markets. I mean, that's exactly what they are. Maybe there's other fitness studios, but there's not a cycling studio. So, as far, a lot of it is gut decision. A lot of it's data driven. I don't know. That's a tough one.
No, that's good. I wanted to make sure that people who are listening here don't just look at a map and look at the data and say, okay, if Buxton or whatever software says I should be on this corner, that data is always historical,
right?
And it doesn't have to do with what the future. There could be a building going up on a corner. There could be a civic center. It could be a stadium. There could be a new school expansion that's not necessarily calibrated into that.
And I think it's important too. With the data, you're exactly right. But it's also important to see the location.
Sure.
I don't care how many locations I have. I want to see every location before it's a location of ours. And the reason why is because you can walk down the street and you can get a vibe instantly of what that community is like.
Yeah, we had one. We were looking at a deal, and there was they were trying to sell their business, and the director of development said, our database is so good, I don't have to look at a location. Fast forward 3 years, they had one location next to a methadone clinic, and there's 300,000 cars going by, but they happen to be on a highway right above with no exit ramp. So it looked really good on a map, but it actually is losing a lot of money.
You're exactly right.
You got to do the work. So in closing here, give us a vision for what Zenergy looks like, and the types of people you want to hire, and where you want to take this, because it seems like you've got a nice business here, and it's poised to scale.
Amazing, yeah. So as Zenergy grows, we want people to join us that have a vision and have a passion. With no passion, you have no purpose. With no purpose, you have no passion. And so, as we grow and as we build our teams and as we go to new areas, it's important to find people that can be a part of the communities that we've built, not just in those new areas, but also the communities that we've already built. And so for us, being able to grow our ridership, our clientele, exactly how we've done it is the most important part. We can add in marketing pieces, we can do all that, but we have to stay true to what Zenergy is, which is the community core values, and the friendships and the family that we built within the studio.
Yeah. Before we close here, I've been thinking about capitalism as like a concept for, and how it's evolved, and how people look at, just what the bottom line is, and they forgot about, how many people are riding a day, how happy they are when they leave a studio, and how that domino affects into everything else they do during the day. So when we look at deals, someone's like, "Oh, what's your profit margin?" It's like, "Oh, let's rewind for a second.
Right.
Like, let me tell you how this is impacting the community, and that this business model works. And then let's look at the financials. Obviously, you're not going to be in business. It's not a nonprofit, but it could be a for-profit with a purpose and a passion that generates good returns, but it doesn't have to. This is not a last dollar industry, and I hope it doesn't get that contaminated, that it becomes that.
And it's so, I love that you say that, because that is what Zenergy is. Benefiting the communities around us. For instance, we are, creating and working on the Ride as One program, where we donate back to all of the communities in which we're in. And the great thing is, fitness concepts like us can do charity rides. We can raise money for disaster reliefs. And we're not only benefiting ourselves, we're benefiting our riders, and then our riders are investing in their communities. And so it's like the domino effect, just like you said.
Yeah. Well, look, we're excited that you came back in here.
Thank you.
We're excited to work with you and the Sabre team, and let's do this again in 24 months and talk about the growth.
Amazing.
And how you've grown as an entrepreneur and how this company is affecting more and more people. So thanks for coming in.
Amazing.
Thanks for bringing your crew.
Thanks so
We
much.
always like participants and the viewership and an audience and a live podcast.
Gotta have the support.
I love
always.
it. All right, great. Thanks for
Awesome.
being on, Nick.
No problem. Thank you.